The Rangers have been linked to a potential trade for White Sox ace Dylan Cease. Is he worth the price, and what would it take to get him? We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into who Dylan Cease is, what it would take to get him, and if he is worth that kind of trade package, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now, this all came out last night. This is something that I have been waiting for the entirety of this very, very slow offseason. We are still in the offseason. The season hasn't started yet, so still technically the offseason, the preseason range, but still, the Rangers finally linked to a potentially big move. There's been a lot of speculation about Jordan Montgomery and whether he will or won't return. He is still a free agent at this point, but it seems like the Rangers are shifting their focus away from Montgomery at this point and more towards White Sox ace Dylan Cease. Now, this all started in a column from Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News, which ironically was talking about Jordan Montgomery and about the super agent Scott Boras, and there was a lot of interesting stuff in there, mainly that Jordan Montgomery is still looking for a team. He's built up to 65 pitches, and he's still very much out there seeking a deal. I talked about him potentially seeking a 7-year deal, according to MLB Trade Rumors, an article there, and I thought why that was kind of insane. I think that was on yesterday's show, maybe it was Monday's show. The week is all starting to run together. But one of the things that Scott Boras was saying in that article, talking to Evan Grant at the Dallas Morning News, was not, oh, the Rangers, you absolutely need to sign Jordan Montgomery. Oh, you need to. Obviously, that's the subtext of the conversation. But he went on bragging about the Dodgers and the Astros and how, the things that separate, the best franchises in baseball from the one and dones is the teams that don't stop making moves after they win the World Series. And just kind of like getting the Rangers goat of, hey, you see this team that you hate down there? You see what they've done the last few years? You don't want to be, swept under the rug by this team. And I think, honestly, it's a brilliant tactic by Scott Boras to get the Rangers to make a move, or to either sign one of his 2 big clients that's out there in Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery, or potentially, it seems like they've turned their sights at another Scott Boras client, Dylan Cease. This is a guy who has been a good to very good to not so good pitcher for the last few years. He is 28 years old. He has been entirely on the White Sox for all of his major league career, and he is a very polarizing player in Major League Baseball. Now, the reason why Cease is a polarizing player is because he does some things very well and other things very not well. I'll talk a little bit more about it later on in the show when I say, is he worth it? But basically, the guy strikes out a lot and he walks a lot. I've heard him described as the pitching version of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which I thought was interesting at first, but then kind of an apt description of 1 year of amazingness and then a whole lot of seasons where you're saying, why isn't this guy better? This guy was supposed to be better, and he has been better, and we're not seeing it right now. But I also kind of think of him more as the right-handed version of Blake Snell. And I've been very reluctant to link the Rangers to hope that the Rangers would get Blake Snell. I mean, obviously, the guy's electric, but when you walk that many and you are not going that deep into games, that kind of limits your value that you can provide as a pitcher. I'm kind of more in the camp of getting a lot of innings, whether you have to sacrifice the strikeouts, whether you're not striking 15 per 9, it's only like 10 per 9, you're going 6-7 innings per start as opposed to 5-6. I'd rather a guy that goes a little bit deeper into games, as long as the strikeouts are still at a decent rate. It doesn't have to be otherworldly. I think that being a little bit more economical with the pitch count is something that's very valuable, especially in a day and age where pitchers are going shorter and shorter into games. If you can get through an order 3-4 times consistently, that is a hugely valuable skill. But this has been some very, very credible links of the Rangers being in consideration of trading for Dylan Cease. I mean, in that article, Evan Grant goes on to say that the Rangers are strongly considering what it would take to get Dylan Cease. And then later last night, Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic wrote the Rangers are also strongly considering trading for Dylan Cease. They are not the only ones who have been considering trading for Dylan Cease. The asking price has been very high. I thought he might get moved at last year's deadline, but it felt like the asking price was way too high. That would have been 2.5 years of team control, which would have been, even heavier prospect bounty. But the White Sox are asking for a lot, and thankfully for the Rangers, they still have a top 10 farm system in baseball, according to MLB Pipeline, even coming off of a championship, which doesn't really happen all the time. And the Rangers have a deep farm system as well, and guys who they can afford to give up without hurting their chances too much in their 1 year and 3 year window for competition. But in the article of the Dallas Morning News, where Evan Grant was talking about this, he said that the White Sox scouts descended in droves upon Rangers camp. And Ken Rosenthal also talked about the White Sox scouts going out and looking at San Diego's camp. Padres are still a little light on pitching because they're probably losing Blake Snell. I don't see any scenario where he comes back there because they're trying to shed payroll after their owner tragically passed away, and that's why they shipped off Juan Soto. But they're still trying to be competitive in a very tough division. And the Yankees, after getting some not great news, but still not saying exactly what the news is about Garrett Cole's elbow, I have to assume that it's kablooey. There's too much secrecy and too much murmuring and whispering for it to not be some kind of major issue. And they're very much all in on this year because Juan Soto is a free agent after this year. So they also have to be pretty competitive in this window. But it seems like the Rangers might be the favorites at this point. For all these articles that are writing about the Rangers having interest and talking a little bit more seriously, I'm not entirely sure if it's not a leverage play to Jordan Montgomery of saying, hey, we don't need you. We don't need to sign you. We can go trade for this other starting pitcher. They haven't been linked to any other trades for starting pitchers in this market. I thought they might have gone after Corbin Burns, and I definitely think they could have beat what the Orioles gave up as a package there, but they didn't, and so you have to move on and look at the next targets. There are a couple of lefty starters out of Miami who the Rangers, I'm sure at least looked at, but I'm sure the asking price there was absolutely astronomical, as it should be, because lefty starters that are that good don't grow on trees, especially ones with multiple years of control. So they land on Dylan Cease, and you deal with the White Sox, and you hope that you can pull one over on them and be able to get an ace level pitcher, and hope that you can get the best out of him, because last year was not a good year for Dylan Cease. His best year was 2022, his age 26 season, had a 2.20 ERA, 184 innings, and an ERA plus of 180. Finished second in Cy Young voting. Also had 227 strikeouts, a career high in those 184 innings. That second place Cy Young finish was just to Justin Verlander. And he's never had another All-Star season, actually, I don't think he's even had an All-Star season. No, he wasn't an All-Star that year, somehow. I don't really particularly know how he wasn't an All-Star that year. But last year finished with a 4.5 ERA. Did start 33 games. Started 32 the year before. Started 32 in 2021. Started 12 in the COVID-shortened season. And then 14 his rookie year in 2019. So the guy has been very durable. And his strikeout rate has been phenomenal for his career. 10.8 Ks per 9 for his career, but 4 walks per 9. Not ideal. A career ERA of 3.83, which is fine, but he's only had 2 seasons with an ERA below 4 in his career. That was 2022, the second place Cy Young season, with a 2.20 ERA, and then a 3.91 ERA in 2021. The guy has been very inconsistent, but obviously the top level stuff is there. There's something to dream on, and he's only making $8 million this year. So there is definitely good reason for the Rangers to be considering him. But I'm still a little skeptical, especially when it comes to the trade package. Coming up, we'll talk about what it might take to trade for Dylan Cease, and is he worth the cost that it would take? Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's the tournament season or the fight for the playoff home court, there is no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Conference tournaments are here, which means, the biggest moments in college basketball, they're getting even closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. You can test your skills on PrizePicks this season. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. It is such a fun way to play daily fantasy. There is no better place to do daily fantasy than PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download that app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less with PrizePicks. It's just that easy. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Later on this week, I'll be talking with Grant Schiller, who is out there in Surprise, getting a good look at all kinds of different prospects in the big league camp as well. Now, a question of what would it take to get Dylan Cease? Now, it's incredibly difficult to predict trade packages for players. It is usually an exercise in futility. It is usually something we are all very, very wrong about, but it's honestly a lot of fun to kind of come up with these hypothetical trade scenarios and kind of figure out, all right, what is the actual value? Because a lot of these trades, it feels like right now, the value is a lot less than you'd expect, years and years ago. Like back in 2015, I mean, the trade market always comes and goes of how much it values prospects. Sometimes people are higher on their prospects, sometimes they're lower on their prospects. It seems like these days, people are a little bit higher on their prospects, more reluctant to give them up than they were back even as recently as like 2015, when the Rangers were making big old trades for guys like Cole Hamels and others, Cliff Lee as well. But now it seems like, especially with the Corbin Burns return, that felt like it was much lower of a return than I was expecting, and maybe the return for Dylan Cease will be not as bad as you'd hope. Let's start with who it wouldn't take to get Dylan Cease, who is off the table. Obviously, Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, those guys, non-negotiable. There is no way they are even dreaming of entertaining either one of those guys in a trade package for Dylan Cease, or honestly, just about anybody in baseball. With the guys, with how they are, with their age, with their potential value, with how highly the Rangers think of them, there are a list of like maybe 5 to 10 players in Major League Baseball that I would even consider trading either of those guys for. So get that out of your head. That's not happening. Don't worry about it. They're also not trading Josh Young. He is also, around that level of caliber player. He's established himself as an all-star his rookie year. Like that's not happening. So then you look at the number 3 prospect on almost everybody's Rangers top prospect list. You got Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford 1 and 2, somewhere in there from everybody. And then number 3 is Sebastian Walcott, the guy who's turning 18, I believe, this week, at some point this week. Maybe it's today. Maybe happy birthday, Sebastian Walcott. He's a guy who absolutely lit it up in his first year of professional baseball. The ceiling is absolutely astronomical with this kid. His tools are loud as heck. His arm is a heat-seeking missile powered by uranium. His bat has all the power in the world, and even though he's 6'4", he might be able to stick at shortstop. Maybe he ends up in right field, maybe he ends up at third base, but the potential with this kid is phenomenal, and the Rangers had him in big league spring training camp, and he more than held his own, had a couple of pretty good moments in big league spring training, and the Rangers think incredibly highly of this kid. I would be very skeptical of the Rangers including him in a trade package for Dylan Cease. It would be a lot, and I don't know that there would be much of anything else to go alongside Sebastian Walcott because his value is so high. And the reason I'm really skeptical of trading Walcott is because his value is insanely high internally, and I don't know if it's quite as high externally. And I'm absolutely terrified of one trade in particular, one that happened between these Chicago White Sox and the San Diego Padres back many years ago in 2016. On June 4th, 2016, the Chicago White Sox traded for James Shields and cash, and the players that they traded away were Eric Johnson and Fernando Tatis Jr. Tatis was just signed a year earlier, so he was still, I believe, 17 or 18 years old at the time, still a long ways away from the big leagues, but the ceiling was incredibly high. He was one of those lottery ticket guys. It's the worst projectile, like the worst possible outcome for trading one of those low-level, flyer guys is he turns into Fernando Tatis Jr., and you got like 3 years of mediocre Chris Sale, or excuse me, not Chris Sale, James Shields for Fernando Tatis Jr. So that's the worst case scenario. And then of the other prospects on this Rangers list, Brock Porter is the one that I would be most reluctant to give up in this deal. I'd do it, but I'd feel really not great about it afterwards. Right now, according to Ken Rosenthal, the players that are of the ilk of this trade, a potential package, he included guys like Brock Porter, Ezequiel Duran, and Jack Leiter. If that's the trade package that it takes to get him, I'd kind of grin and bear it, but I think I'd do it. Zeke Duran, I think, is a first division starter caliber player. We saw what kind of potential he had when he was playing every single day, filling in for Corey Seager when he missed significant time in the first half of last season. And without what Ezequiel Duran did, the Rangers might not even make the playoffs. He was that important to this Rangers team. But he is still your backup shortstop at this point. He is probably not your opening day DH. I'm pretty darn sure that's going to be Wyatt Langford. There is not another spot for him to play every day in this lineup, barring an injury, we'll see how quickly Corey Seager is actually coming back, if he's actually ready for opening day, and how ready Josh Young is for opening day. But if that's what it takes, and Brock Porter turns into a middle of the rotation or even top of the rotation pitcher, and if Jack Leiter figures it out and turns into Cole Reagan's 2.0, that would sting a lot. But it's not like you have the most confidence in the White Sox being an incredibly well-run organization to scout out the guys that they're going to pull one over on the Rangers, and Dylan Cease is not going to be the same Dylan Cease the Rangers are expecting. But you go back and look at the history of pitching development in the White Sox. This is not one of the teams that I would say is one of the smartest run in baseball. They had the same GM for 20 years until they made a switch last year, and the guy who they promoted to be the new GM was just the assistant GM to the old GM. And so this is one of the under the radar most old school, like not up to date front offices in Major League Baseball that is just kind of lost touch with what it means to be a modern team and modern philosophies and all kinds of things that make a lot of franchises successful, like the Dodgers, like the Rays, like even you're hoping the Rangers are turning out to be, and what the Astros did, turning their franchise around. All these teams are very, very modern in their thinking and the way they evaluate players. The White Sox are not that. But you look at some of the homegrown starting pitchers that the White Sox have churned out, even just since 2015, and the list makes me green with jealous rage when I look back at how few starting pitchers the Rangers had developed, homegrown starting pitchers. Since 2015, guys who have pitched in their rotation who have had a top 10 Cy Young finish that are homegrown or mostly homegrown guys that came up through mostly in their minor league system. These are the guys who they've had since then that have had top 10 Cy Young finishes. Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito did it twice, Carlos Rodon did it twice, only once for them. Jose Quintana did it once. And Chris Sale has done it 7 times in his career. 7 times! Top 10 Cy Young finishes. It's nuts. And this is not one of the smartest teams in baseball. How do they keep lucking into all of these good starting pitchers? Well, maybe there's something in the water there. Maybe they're just lucky. Or maybe these guys who they traded for are just so talented that they could succeed in any system. I think that's definitely the case with Chris Sale. Maybe it's the case with Cease and Giolito and Rodon. Maybe with Quintana, I don't know. I don't have any idea. But I know the Rangers would have killed for just one of those guys, one of those homegrown talents in the last 10, 15 years. And they have not been able to do it. And so if this is their alternative, if they keep trading away these guys and they just have not had any luck, and you'd think eventually one of these guys, one of these top pitching prospects is going to have to work out and be at least a number 4 starter in rotation. Like, I would kill for that at this point, and that has not happened. But trading for a cost control guy like Cease, that's about what it's going to take. My trade proposal: Ezequiel Duran, Justin Foscue, Josh Steven, and Chedry Vargas. Maybe you throw in a Marcus Torres in there to kind of make it a little bit more balanced. But if you can get away with not including any of your top 4 prospects in Carter, Langford, Walcott, and Porter, then I think that's a huge win, no matter who else you give up, even if it is Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, which I don't think they'd ask for Kumar Rocker since he's hurt right now. But I think that's the kind of trade package you're looking at. I have Vargas as a top 10 guy in my list. I mean, Foscue is number 5 on my prospect list, and Josh Steven is number 12. So 3 top 12 guys and a guy who's ready to be an everyday starter at the major league level in Ezequiel Duran, who has, I believe, 3 more years, maybe 4 more seasons of club control left. That's a big cost. But coming up, we're going to talk about, is that cost worth it? And what can the Rangers expect from Dylan Cease if they do pull the trigger and make that trade? Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Seriously, this is the best app you can find to buy tickets for anything you need. They give you those all-in prices, no surprise fees at the end when you were thinking, okay, this ticket is going to cost this much dollar, and then you see right at the end, nope, surprise, here's a bazillion in fees. And with Gametime, it takes all that guesswork out of how much you're actually going to pay for your ticket, which for me is one of the most annoying things about buying tickets. It's like, all right, just tell me how much I'm going to pay for this ticket. And Gametime, they're the honest site. They show you, hey, this is how much it's going to be. This is what it's going to look like. This is a good deal. This is a not good deal. It is the best way I have ever found to buy tickets for anything that you need. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Later on this week, I'll be talking about the importance of Jon Gray, why he needs to have a big season for this Rangers team to do well in 2024. Now, I feel like that kind of segues me very well into, is this worth it? Is Dylan Cease worth this kind of a trade package? Is it worth it to give up this much for a guy who has been great at times and mediocre as heck at other times? And just by that segue of me saying, hey, this is Jon Gray, he's going to be very important to the Rangers season and their success in 2024, it kind of leads you to see, oh, yeah, this starting rotation is, well, it's fine. It's not great. It's not elite. We'll see what it looks like with the guys who are healthy or are not healthy for most of the season when they come back, how they look with Scherzer, Malley, and DeGrom. But at this point in the first half, the rotation could use a little bit of a boost. And Dylan Cease definitely is that. I think one of the quotes that really stuck out to me in those 2 articles from The Athletic and from the Dallas Morning News was one from Ken Rosenthal's article from a Rangers person speaking on the condition of anonymity. They said, quote, "Have you seen our rotation in the first half?" End quote. Now, that's not an encouraging sign from your front office saying, yep, these guys kind of suck. Like, that's not something that the Rangers want getting out. I'm sure Chris Young is absolutely livid that quote got out from someone with the Rangers. I mean, I don't know if it was a front office member, if it was a player, if it was a coaching staff member, if it was, I don't know. But somebody with the organization said that. And that is not the vote of confidence you want given to your starting staff, which I think is fine at this point in the first half. But again, you also have all the question marks of, can these guys all stay healthy, at least healthy enough until you get the reinforcements from the other unhealthy guys, and can that be enough to keep you above water, keep you in the fight for the AL West, or at least for a wild card spot, or at least to be around 500 when some of these guys start to come back. And then you can start to really see how good your team is. But this opening day rotation, if they trade for Dylan Cease, it would look like this. I think Nate Eovaldi still starts opening day. Dylan Cease is your game 2 starter, your number 2 starter in your rotation. Then John Gray is bumped down all the way to number 3 as opposed to number 2. That feels much more safe about where he's going to be. Andrew Heaney is your number 4 starter, and Dane Dunning is your number 5 starter, with Cody Bradford as the long man in the pen. And you don't really have to worry about Jose Urena, and you don't have to worry about needing something from Owen White. Probably, hopefully. You don't need to worry about needing something from Zach Kent or potentially Jack Leiter if he's included there or if he's not. We'll see what happens if that happens and what that looks like. But that feels like a much more safe, much more top-of-the-line rotation. I feel like all those projections that are having the Rangers for anywhere between 82 and 86 wins, those are bumping way up if the Rangers make a move for Cease. You got to have a lot more faith in this team if Dylan Cease is in the rotation because he has been so durable. Hasn't missed a single start since 2020. That's a rarity in this day and age. But also, one of the guys you could say that about is Lucas Giolito. And his elbow might be kablooey. He might be done for the year. And so you never know with pitchers. That's why you want to have a bazillion of them. Max Scherzer was one of the most healthy pitchers for the last 15 years, how long he's been in the big leagues. And in the last couple years, he's had some injuries and been knocked around and been around 145 or 150 innings the last 2 years. And this year he's not going to be ready until June. So you never know with pitchers. You feel good. You feel better about guys who don't have that prolonged injury history. And that's what Dylan Cease doesn't have, is a prolonged injury history. But the walks, they are such a big problem. They are such a monumental problem. But the strikeouts are the antidote. That's why Blake Snell has 2 Cy Youngs, is because even if you walk a bazillion guys, if you don't give up a bunch of hard contact, you don't give a bunch of home runs, and that's what Dylan Cease is, and you strike a million guys out, that's what Dylan Cease is to a lesser degree, then you can have seasons where you have success, and you can have success in the playoffs, which is what the Rangers are hoping for if they trade all this prospect capital, all this player value for Dylan Cease. They're banking on getting the better version of Dylan Cease, the 2022 version of Dylan Cease, not the 2023 version. Now, one of the reasons why I think that he didn't have as much success last year as he did the year before is his fastball velocity was down a whole mile an hour. In the years before, he was averaging 96.5 miles an hour or better. 2019, his first year of the big leagues, 96.5 miles an hour on his fastball. 2020, the shortened season, 97.5 miles an hour on that fastball. Next year, 2021, 96.7. Next year, his best year, 96.8. Last year, 95.6, the lowest of his career. If the Rangers can find a way to get that back, he has looked fantastic in the spring, but his fastball isn't even his best pitch. It's his most used pitch last year and for most of his career. But the year that he had the most success was the year that he was pumping that slider, and it was looking absolutely fantastic in 2022. Now, you look at the breaking ball value, overall catch-all metric for his pitcher run value in 2022. Breaking ball value is 100th percentile. He had the best breaking stuff in baseball. You threw that slider 47% of the time, fastball 41%, curveball 14%, so that curveball was still pretty darn good as well. The overall pitching run value is in the 99th percentile, so these are the top 1% of baseball pitchers in 2022. But you kind of knew that when he finished second in Cy Young voting, only to Justin Verlander. And if not for Verlander having a father time-defying season that kind of caught everybody off guard, I think Cease would have won that Cy Young. But alas, still, a Cy Young caliber season is what the Rangers hoped they could get out of Dylan Cease, maybe even 2 Cy Young caliber seasons. And those pitchers don't grow on trees. They really don't. And even though there are all those question marks about, his walks and about how long he's going into his starts, it's really going to drive me crazy if he is, Andrew Heaney-esque and he's going 4 to 5 innings in starts. That drives me nuts, especially when it's a guy who is, your number 2 starter in your rotation. That drives me absolutely insane. But in a playoff rotation where this entire team is entirely healthy, and helpful. Cease is your number 3 starter, in my opinion. It goes to DeGrom, Eovaldi, Cease. Then your 4th starter is either Max Scherzer or Tyler Mahle, depending on which one's healthier and more effective at the time. And then you move all of those John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Dane Dunning to the bullpen, and if you have an injury or two in this rotation, then you have that kind of depth to go into a playoff rotation where, John Gray is at worst your number 4 starter. If all those injuries, or multiple injuries, I should say, that he's your number 4 starter. That's still a really, really darn good rotation. And as for the guys in that projected trade from Ken Rosenthal, Ezequiel Duran, it's going to sting if he goes to the White Sox and is amazing, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. If Jack Leiter just continues to figure it out and turns into a number 3 starter, and the Rangers give that up, and it's Cole Reagan's 2.0, that's going to be a huge bummer, especially if Cease isn't, maybe not, 2.20 ERA in 184 innings level Cease, but it is somewhere in the middle of, 2.90 ERA and 180 innings. That's going to sting, seeing Jack Leiter go do that somewhere else. And Brock Porter definitely has the highest ceiling of any pitching prospect in this Rangers system. But he's still very young. He still hasn't made it above low A. There are still a lot of tweaks to his development, a long way to go, because there is no such thing as a pitching prospect. And there is a reason why starting pitchers on the open market, even guys like Jordan Montgomery, who don't have any top 10 Cy Young finishes and are maybe on a really darn good rotation, your number 3 starter, because developing those guys is so hard. And getting cost-controlled starting pitching is so hard. Dylan Cease has his flaws, but he is a cost-controlled starting pitcher for 2 seasons with that incredibly high upside. Now, maybe Mike Maddox is able to work some magic and get the best out of Dylan Cease and get stuff with, pitch shapes and all kinds of more advanced things that the Rangers are doing a little bit better than the White Sox are doing. Or maybe he reverts and he's kind of closer to what he was, in 2021, which was the mediocre season of his career, of a 3.91 ERA and 220 strikeouts and under 170 innings. Maybe that's it. But you got him for 2 years, for $8 million this year. You don't have to break the bank. You can kind of hold out and hope for next year's pitching class. Maybe the Rangers will feel better about spending money because they will have some kind of longer-term deal ironed out with the TV contract situation. Or maybe you don't. And you can still have this guy in rotation when Scherzer and when Heaney walk next year. And so at this point, I think it's worth it. It's a scary prospect trading, this much value for Dylan Cease, a guy who has been this volatile. But I think the Rangers have the best chance to go get him of these teams that are involved. They can make a trade package that's going to hurt a little because they all do. But I think if you can keep Sebastian Walcott out of it, you're definitely going to keep your top 2 prospects that are top 10 in all of baseball out of it. And if you can keep Brock Porter out of it, no matter who else you give up, that's a win. Even if Brock Porter has to get involved, I think that's still a win. The Rangers desperately need some starting pitching help, and I think Dylan Cease is the answer. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.